Good morning. It is Wednesday, November 21st, 2012. Welcome to CBS This Morning. Breaking news, a bus explodes in Tel Aviv, threatening peace talks in the Middle East. We'll have reports from across the region.
The Fed warns President Obama and Congress if we go over the fiscal cliff, there's no stopping the damage.
Superstorm Sandy is still having an impact, this time on Thanksgiving travelers.
But we begin this morning with a look at today's eye-opener, your world in 90 seconds.
We've been seeing the rockets back and forth as this conflict has been escalating. This is a new level of violence.
Terror in Tel Aviv as a bomb rips through a city bus.
At least 10 people have been injured. It comes after a week of attacks and counterattacks between the Israeli Defense Forces and Palestinians in Gaza.
Efforts to end the fighting between Israel and Hamas have so far come up short.
The rocket attacks on Israeli towns must end.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton met with Palestinian leaders this morning as talks continue to end the bloodshed.
Everybody's a little bit skeptical now about getting the ceasefire, but at this stage, nobody really knows.
Today is one of the busiest travel days of the year as millions of Americans head out to their Thanksgiving destinations.
It is game on for more than 43 million Americans hitting the road.
More than 3 million of us are expected to fly to our destinations this holiday.
It's going to be so jammed up. Listen to this. TSA agents said to speed things along, passengers are being asked to grope themselves.
A controversial recommendation. A group of top doctors say birth control pills should be sold over the counter.
A shakeup on Sesame Street. The man behind Elmo announced he is leaving the show after another accusation about underage boys.
Walking around San Francisco naked will no longer be allowed. The city's Board of Supervisors voted tonight to ban public nudity.
Oh, that?
A scoring performance from college basketball that's hard to believe. 138 points by one guy. And if you don't believe me, you don't know Jack.
And all that matters.
You disrupt shopping in the Thanksgiving period in the United States of America, and you're taking on quite something.
Find out who is spending 3 days waiting in line for these Black Friday sales and go shopping at their house.
CBS This Morning.
All right, let's take a look at the clip.
Oh, I thought we were going to go in for a kiss. Okay.
Welcome to CBS This Morning. I'm Charlie Rose in New York. Norah O'Donnell is in Washington. We've been expecting an announcement of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas for nearly 24 hours. It still has not happened, and both sides are still trading air attacks across the Gaza-Israel border.
And this morning, Israeli officials say a bomb went off on a bus in Tel Aviv. They're calling it a terrorist attack. At least 10 people were injured when the bus exploded on a main street near Israel's military headquarters. At this time, police don't know if it was a suicide bombing or if the bomb was planted on the bus.
In Gaza this morning, Hamas spokesman said about the bus bombing, Hamas blesses the attack. Israeli forces attacked more targets in Gaza overnight. Charlie D'Agata is in Gaza City and had a very close encounter with one Israeli airstrike.
Israeli fighter jets had been passing over Gaza City all night, and we had these huge explosions. Just after 2 a.m., there was this massive blast just outside the hotel that blew in the windows of my room. I ran into the hall to make sure that our colleagues were okay. Nobody was injured inside that hotel, unlike the more than 100 people who've been killed and more than 1,000 wounded in this conflict. This is what it looked and sounded like when an Israeli airstrike pummeled an area just a block away from where we were staying. The force of the blast blew in the windows of the building. Journalists inside scrambled for cover. Nowhere is considered safe in Gaza City. It was one of a number of attacks that struck an area where a lot of foreign journalists are staying, covering this side of the conflict. It landed in a soccer field in a neighborhood of apartment buildings and hotels. It's just a close-up example of the barrage of attacks that have come by land, air, and sea, pounding this crowded strip. Last night was one of the worst yet in this week-long fight. Naval warships fired dozens of rounds into Gaza, and fighter jets kept their bombing runs up through dawn. The attacks were sustained and relentless. They leveled a city block where the Interior Ministry used to stand. The Israeli military said it was a command and control center for Hamas, which makes it a legitimate target, but civilians are dying. Palestinian officials told us the past 24 hours have been the bloodiest yet in terms of civilian casualties. More than 140 people have been killed and more than 1,000 wounded. so far. It's hard to believe the tensions could get any higher here, but we have heard about the explosion in Tel Aviv. Everybody here is worried. Shortly after Israeli fighter jets flew overhead, there were more airstrikes here, and everybody is concerned about more retaliation attacks to come. For CBS This Morning, I'm Charlie D'Agata in Gaza City.
And Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is meeting this morning with Egypt's president. She sat down earlier with Israel's prime minister and the Palestinian president. Clarissa Ward is in Cairo covering the peace talks. And Clarissa, I have to ask you about the breaking news this morning. I mean, how do you think this bus attack in Tel Aviv may impact these negotiations?
Well, everybody is now extremely concerned about trying to make any predictions whatsoever as to when this ceasefire agreement might happen. You remember that yesterday, everybody in Egypt, at least, was very confident that it would happen on Tuesday yesterday. So confident, in fact, that the headline on this English language newspaper was Hamas and Israel agree to a ceasefire. Obviously, that did not happen. Secretary Clinton is on her way and will be arriving imminently in Cairo. She's expected to address the press with Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi later on this afternoon. But at this stage, everyone here very nervous about making any guesses as to when and if a ceasefire may be announced.
Clarissa, Charlie Rose, do we know what issue for whom seems to be the roadblock to getting to the ceasefire?
Well, there's a lot of finger pointing going on in every direction. If you speak to Egyptian officials here, they say it's the Israelis who postponed the announcement of a ceasefire. If you speak to the Israelis, they say that it's essentially Hamas's demand that the blockade on Gaza be lifted that has slowed things down. So mixed messages from all different parties involved. But the one thing that is clear is that Secretary Clinton is coming here with a very strong message that this ceasefire needs to get squared away as soon as possible.
That raises this question. We know the Egyptians are playing a crucial role. How large a role does the Secretary of State want to play in these negotiations?
Well, clearly the U.S. is seeking to play a major role. She has been holding talks nonstop since she arrived in the region last night with Prime Minister Netanyahu, with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Soon she'll be meeting with President Morsi. We also know that President Obama, on his way home from Asia yesterday, spoke to President Morsi 3 times on the phone from that plane. So clearly the U.S. is seeking to have a strong influence on these talks. But the question is, how much influence can they actually exert? Secretary Clinton has said that the violence must stop, that the situation must not escalate. But so far, that hasn't happened.
Clarissa Ward, thank you. President Obama did return to Washington overnight after his tour of Southeast Asia. CBS News political director John Dickerson is here. John, I want to pick up on what Clarissa just mentioned. The president talking with the Egyptian president 3 times. He has sent his Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to the region for shuttle diplomacy. Does this suggest a very activist role by this administration in this conflict?
I think activist in trying to get this conflict contained in some way, trying to not to have it bleed over and clash in with other states. But I don't think it suggests a long-term or engagement by the president at that level over time. I think they want this done. I mean, Hillary Clinton is not long in the job, and so I think they want to contain this now. But then the question is, what level of engagement from the president in this incredibly sticky area? It's when you think about it, he was just coming from Asia, the so-called pivot to Asia, once again being interrupted by the Middle East.
That's a good point. Charlie?
John, let's take a look at this, what Bernanke said in response to the fiscal crisis.
The worst case scenario where the economy goes off the broad fiscal cliff, the largest fiscal cliff, which according to CBO and to our own analysis would throw the economy into recession, I don't think the Fed has the tools to offset that. That's why it is important.
So where do you think we are in these discussions that are going on with Congress and with other members of the community of interested parties, including business and labor?
Well, the pressure, and that was just one more sign of pressure, as if we needed it. Everybody's been talking about what a disaster this will be. But where we are basically is 2 sets of deals. One, a short-term deal to deal with this austerity crisis, which is, as Ezra Klein of the Washington Post calls it, that will hit us. And there's a short-term deal that needs to be dealt with by the end of the year, and then some kind of agreement for long-term tax reform and for entitlement reform. The question is, can a short-term deal be made in which everybody's locked in then to that more serious process? And what I thought was interesting about Bernanke is he said, you know, that everybody in Washington has to behave like adults in order to give confidence to the business community and to allow the economy to grow. And what's interesting is what kind of a deal can they come up with in the short term that will show that they are actually serious about dealing with these issues. There's no more of these agreements that can be made because they just don't hold. So that's the really interesting question, is what the reaction will be to the short-term deal that gives them the space to then take on the long, difficult questions of tax reform and entitlements.
And what's the likelihood they can make that short-term deal?
I think there's it's interesting how you read the leverage, because there's an argument that basically if the so-called fiscal cliff happens, taxes go up for everybody, then you have a conversation about not about raising taxes, but about then cutting taxes. They will have already gone up. And the question is whether the president has a great deal more leverage. He then basically is able to say it's because the Republicans were too stuck that these taxes went up in the first place, and now they don't want to lower taxes on the middle class because they're stuck on trying to keep taxes low for the wealthy. So there is an argument for actually, because the cliff isn't an actual cliff, because nothing will happen the day after that is catastrophic, there's an argument for actually maybe letting this happen. The president gets even more leverage.
Yeah, there's some talk about trying to do two things in two phases, at least protect the middle class and let the rest of the stuff go over the cliff for maximum pressure. John Dickerson, thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
This day before Thanksgiving is one of the busiest travel days of the year, and millions of people may feel the impact of Superstorm Sandy when they go out on the road. Jim Axelrod is on the New Jersey Turnpike. Jim, good morning.
Well, good morning, Charlie. And for the fourth year in a row, more Americans will travel this Thanksgiving weekend than they did the year before. AAA estimates 43 million Americans will travel 50 miles or more on this holiday weekend. And the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy could make the usual Thanksgiving holiday crunch even worse.
Hurricane Sandy rocked the nation's most populated and busiest travel corridor less than a month ago. Now it's forced millions to rethink and reevaluate their holiday travel plans.
The economic impact could be substantial. When people travel, they spend money.
Sandy damaged or destroyed 250,000 vehicles, personal and commercial cars, and trucks flooded, along with car dealerships and rental lots. The result is a rental car shortage during the busiest travel period of the year.
The rental car agencies are saying that they're bringing more vehicles into the region, but when you're talking about a loss of 250,000 vehicles, we're talking about an awful lot of vehicles that have to come into this region to make up the difference.
In New York City, fuel rationing from Sandy will continue the rest of the week, despite the holiday. And drivers nationwide will have to dig a bit deeper this year to fill up. The national average price of gas is just about $3.40 a gallon, a decline of nearly 40 cents per gallon since early October, but it is still on track to set an all-time Thanksgiving high. The airline industry took a major hit from Sandy as well. More than 20,000 flights were canceled and airports were closed for days. That industry was quick to bounce back as 3 million travelers are expected to fly this week.
You shouldn't see any lingering side effects or after effects of the airlines, either operationally or financially. Everything should be all systems go for this weekend.
Well, back on the New Jersey Turnpike, I mean, imagine these roads in just a couple of hours. More than 1 million New Jersey residents expected to be on the move today. Although, from my experience on the New Jersey Turnpike, probably not moving as quickly as they'd like. Charlie?
Jim, remember what my mother used to say to me, just because you love cars, you don't have to be the fastest and best driver on the road.
Your mother was a smart woman. I'll keep that in mind.
Jim Axelrod, thank you. Senator Robert F. Kennedy's youngest son was acquitted Tuesday of all charges stemming from a hospital confrontation. Douglas Kennedy was accused of assaulting 2 nurses earlier this year. As Jeff Glor reports, the defendant said he just wanted to give his newborn child some fresh air. Jeff, good morning.
Charlie, good morning to you. During this 5-day trial, the prosecution tried to prove Kennedy was guilty of harassing nurses and putting his child in danger. Kennedy insisted he was innocent, waiving his right to a jury and letting a judge make the call.
In the end, it was the surveillance video at the center of the case that helped clear Douglas Kennedy.
The only people who acted inappropriately, the only people the judge found who created this situation that resulted in what everyone saw in the videotape were the nurses.
Back in January, cameras captured Kennedy trying to leave a Westchester hospital with his 2-day-old son, Beau. That's when 2 nurses, thinking he was violating hospital policy, tried to stop him, and a 7-minute confrontation unfolded. In court, one nurse testified Kennedy twisted her arm. The other accused him of kicking her.
Douglas and Molly are incredibly thrilled by the end of the nightmare. To receive an unequivocal statement from the judge that Douglas did not commit any crimes is just something that they are very grateful for.
In a 10-page decision, Judge John Donahue wrote that the nurses chose to physically confront the defendant and that they told the court Kennedy was calm and did not raise his voice or threaten them in any way. The women could still file a civil lawsuit. Kennedy's lawyer says the court has already spoken and that his client's famous last name had nothing to do with it.
People should not think for a moment that he received preferential treatment because he was a Kennedy. He went through this nightmare because he was a Kennedy.
Kennedy himself never took the stand. His not guilty decision came on what would have been the 87th birthday of his father, Robert Kennedy. Charlie?
Jeff Glor, thanks. Nora?
Homicide investigators are questioning a couple for an explosion that devastated an Indianapolis neighborhood. Police reportedly are talking with Mark Leonard and Monserrate Shirley. Their home was at the center of the blast 2 weeks ago. They live next door to John and Jennifer Longworth, the young couple who died in the explosion. Well, police now tell the Indianapolis Star they believe a gas or stovepipe may have been tampered with inside Shirley's home. Neither Shirley nor Leonard have been named suspects.
Here's a story I love. A 5'10" shooting guard has just shattered college basketball single-game scoring record. Jack Taylor of Grinnell College in Iowa scored 138 points last night against Faith Baptist College. You heard that right, 138 points. Taylor made 52 of his 108 shots. That included 27 three-point baskets. The old record for an NCAA game was 113 points, set way back in 1954 by Bevo Francis. Grinnell won the game 179-104. And by the way, David Larson of Faith Baptist scored 70 points.
Love it.
It is time now to show you some of this morning's headlines from around the globe. The Miami Herald says a 15-year-old boy is charged with manslaughter after a teenage girl was shot to death on a school bus. The shooting is being called an accident. Police say the suspect pulled the gun out of his backpack on Tuesday. The gun went off once, hitting the 13-year-old victim in the neck. No one else was injured.
The Wall Street Journal reports a portfolio manager accused of insider trading has ties to a very well-known investor. Federal prosecutors described the case as the most lucrative insider trading scheme ever. The suspect works for a company owned by Stephen A. Cohen. He has not been charged, but the report describes Cohen as the ultimate target of the investigation.
In Britain, The Guardian says Church of England bishops are holding an emergency meeting after losing a vote to allow women to become bishops. They voted overwhelmingly to allow women to join their ranks, but a vote by non-clerical leaders fell just short.
The New York Times says Hostess is moving ahead with going out of business plans. Last night, the company failed to reach a new agreement with its bakery workers union, despite the help of a mediator.
And another favorite story, the Toronto Star says a new study finds no link between the full moon and crazy behavior. Researchers looked at emergency room visits at 2 major hospitals in Canada. They counted the patients who had unexplained ailments, anxiety attacks, or suicidal thoughts, and compared them to the lunar calendar. And guess what? No connection.
All right, it is now 7:19. Time for our first check of your local weather.
This National Weather Report sponsored by Toys R Us.
This is a special Black Friday Toys R Us update.
Toys R Us
This is the Toy Authority.
And here's Bob Sutter with the forecast.
The toy shopping conditions are perfect. For the first time ever, doors open Thursday, 8 p.m. with over 200 doorbusters and 50% off the hottest toys. Plus, the first 200 families in each store get a free $30 bag of toys, starting Thursday at 8.
Toys R Us. Why shop anywhere else for toys? Why?
Big box retailers are facing a huge Christmas challenge. At Best Buy, where profits are way down, they're trying harder to match online prices and bring back holiday shoppers.
What's the advantage to shopping in store?
I think you get your product right there when you want it.
This morning, Rebecca Jarvis looks at a retail chain's struggle to survive.
And the Petraeus scandal takes a bizarre turn.
I look forward to the day when I'm able to answer everyone's questions and explain what really happened in this matter.
We'll show you how one peripheral character took center stage on Tuesday, along with publicity magnate Gloria Allred. That's ahead on CBS This Morning.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Target. Dream big, save bigger.
When I was driving into work this morning, I saw a line of people already waiting outside the Best Buy on La Brea, which is crazy. There's a good chance Best Buy won't even be in business by Friday, and they're waiting in line. I feel like someone should let these people know that there's a thing now called the internet, and if you use it, you can stay home and just click on stuff. It'll come right to your house. But if you want to shatter your femur fighting for a Blu-ray player, go nuts. Walmart is starting its Black Friday sales at 8 p.m. on Thursday, on Thanksgiving this year, which that's terrible. You know, if you want to be greeted by an old person at the door on Thanksgiving, go visit your grandma.
Good point.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Washington. Charlie Rose is in New York. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. You know, we've been talking about this holiday shopping. Of course, it gets into high gear this week. The traditional retail chains are under big pressure to try and bring shoppers in. Well, a new Gallup poll finds the average shopper plans to spend $770 on gifts, just a few dollars more than last year.
Big box chains face a long list of challenges. Something called showrooming is near the top of that list. Rebecca Jarvis went out to see how one retailer is fighting it. Rebecca, good morning.
Charlie, good morning to you. And it may be the most wonderful time of the year for many, but for Best Buy, this is the most crucial time of the year. After reporting a significant drop in quarterly profits on Tuesday, Best Buy has the holidays to try to turn things around. Its challenge to every customer walking in: it must sell its thousands of stores of merchandise in store rather than online.
Where does everybody like to shop at Black Friday?
Best Buy!
In the final countdown to the Black Friday frenzy.
All right, team, so today we're going to dry run what Black Friday is going to look like, okay?
Retailers like Best Buy are leaving nothing to chance.
When we open, we're going to have a lot of excited customers out there.
At this 24-hour store in New York City,
you can ring on 4.
Manager Amy Adonis and her employees are running dress rehearsals ahead of the big day.
Right here to register too.
Thank you. We start the process early on. We hold team meetings, we role play, and we do dry runs. We do them department specific so they know what to expect for that day, what that day is going to look like. And then we're what? Ensuring that no customer? No customer! Exactly.
How important is Black Friday to your store?
But it's a very important year. It kicks off the whole holiday season for us.
Best Buy makes more than 50% of its profits during the holiday season, and competition for those dollars is heating up for everyone because of online shopping. This holiday, Americans will spend $1 in every $6 on the web, and while sales overall are forecast to climb 4%, sales online are expected to soar 12%.
You want to search for the best possible price, and if anything we've learned post-recession is that the consumer is willing to give up on experience.
Stock analyst Brian Sazi says showrooming, where customers scope out products in store but ultimately buy online, is posing a big problem for big retailers.
Showrooming is not just some of this phenomenon that has no impact. It is real, it is happening, and it's crushing these brick and mortar retailers.
Best Buy's digital marketing head acknowledged the showrooming issue at an analyst conference in New York last week.
You have to embrace the trend of showrooming. As retailers, as merchants, we have to take advantage of the opportunity that customers have coming into our store.
To do just that, Best Buy is offering for the first time to match the prices of online competitors.
What's the advantage to shopping in store?
I think you get your product right there when you want it. That's the biggest advantage to it.
But retailers should also be careful of the enemy within.
I always think about it this way. Every cell phone that's sold, for every tablet that's sold, for every iPad mini that goes out of the store this year, that's a vote against brick and mortar retailing.
Each year we watch the progression of e-commerce and ask this question: what's the future of big box retailers?
And the future that we're seeing right now is that there will be fewer storefronts. In 5 years, is Best Buy, is Walmart, is Target going to need all of the storefronts that are sitting out there right now? The answer from most analysts is that no, they will not. There still very likely will be stores, brick and mortar stores for people to walk into. But as people shift their spending online, and this year about 20% of what people spend the holidays is going to the online stores, it's very likely going to mean fewer seasonal jobs. There's about 600,000 of them this year, and also just fewer storefronts.
Thank you, Rebecca. We've now heard from one of the people involved in the David Petraeus scandal. It was the twin sister of Joe Kelly, the socialite who led the FBI to uncover the affair. We'll hear what she said or didn't say on CBS This Morning.
This morning, General John Allen is back in Afghanistan, resuming his role as the top U.S. commander there. Last week, the Pentagon started investigating Allen's connection to a central figure in the David Petraeus scandal. And as we've told you, there are a lot of little connections that have brought this whole affair together that eventually led to the CIA director resigning. Chip Reed is here with new information. Chip, good morning.
Well, good morning, Nora. You know, they finally put somebody out there who we thought would give us some information. This is really the first time since this scandal broke that we heard from anyone who would appear to have some inside information. But it turned out to be a bizarre press conference featuring a famous celebrity lawyer that only served to raise more questions than it answered. It's been almost 2 weeks since the story broke, and the first person to speak out wasn't General Petraeus. And it wasn't his alleged mistress, Paula Broadwell, nor was it Joe Kelly, the woman who accidentally uncovered the affair when she allegedly passed threatening emails from Broadwell to the FBI. No, it was Kelly's twin sister, Natalie Quam.
We are here today to help the public understand who Natalie Quam really is.
She was joined by none other than Gloria Allred, a celebrity attorney who always seems to find the spotlight when a high-profile scandal hits. Allred was there for the woman who accused disgraced Congressman Anthony Weiner of pressuring her to lie about their racy conversations. She stood with several women who claimed to have had affairs with Tiger Woods. And when former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger was accused of sexual harassment, Allred was again center stage. Quam does have a role in the latest drama, but she appears to play only a bit part. General Petraeus and General John Allen, who is under investigation for emails he sent to Quam's sister, Kelly, wrote letters supporting Quam in a custody battle. At the press conference, she spoke for barely a minute.
My sister Jill and I aren't just twins, we're best friends. Literally inseparable.
There were questions.
How is your sister holding up, Natalie?
What is happening here with these generals, with these young women?
But they weren't really answered.
I don't have any comment on that. It's a very complicated question. It's a very profound question. I think we're not going to have Natalie answer any questions today.
But Quam did have this to say about her sister.
We played varsity tennis together. She played net and I served. We also played softball together. She was the catcher and I pitched. We love to cook together. I usually bake and she sautés.
Allred said her client wouldn't be doing any more appearances or interviews at this time because of pending investigations.
I look forward to the day when I'm able to answer everyone's questions and explain what really happened in this matter.
In fact, there was so little information given out that reporters were scratching their heads wondering why they even held a press conference. But in all seriousness, there are some important questions here that need to be answered. Why did two four-star generals get involved in Quam's custody dispute? And how did the two sisters get access to high-ranking government officials, including, Nora, two courtesy meals at the White House? But we are told that they did not meet with the president. They met with a mid-level official.
All right, Chip Reed, thank you. It is now 7:42. Time now for your local weather. You know, it may be strange to hear an edgy morning DJ get serious. Donating a kidney can do that to people. We're going to have the story of his incredibly selfless act that may have saved a life next on CBS This Morning.
18 Americans die each day while awaiting an organ transplant. So this month, one Los Angeles DJ decided to step in and help. As Lee Cowan reports, it was a teaching moment for him and his listeners.
All this week on K-Rock.
Kevin and Bean.
Kevin and Bean show at 9:38.
California's morning drive sensation.
Now, new music, here's Matt and Kim. Let's go.
The DJs, Kevin Ryder and Gene Bean Baxter, are as well known for their alternative music as their on-air antics.
You wouldn't go see Lincoln? I think it looks amazing. Imagine how disappointed Kevin is going to be if he goes to see that movie and realizes there's no vampires in it.
Just go see it. Why does Kevin hate
Lincoln? So no wonder commuters nearly slammed on their brakes this month when Bean suddenly turned serious.
I have decided to help a friend out by donating a kidney.
Bean donating a kidney? Even Kevin was shocked.
What he's doing is, you know, more than I would do. He's a better man than I am.
In the days that followed, Bean's generosity became the source of endless jokes.
This kidney should go in the Hall of Fame. If there's a hall for famous kidneys, this has to be the most famous kidney, right? Just trying to do my part, buddy. Come on.
It was all about this man, the station's chief engineer, Scott Mason, who had been limping along on dialysis for years, but never told a soul.
I didn't want anybody to think that I was less capable than anybody else at work.
He's moving kind of slow, didn't look that great. And I thought, whoa, what's going on? You got to lay off the crack. What's happening?
Scott, it turns out, was on a waiting list for a kidney transplant. But he told Bean it could take as long as 8 years. What Bean said next left Scott speechless.
He said, well, I really want you to have one of my kidneys. I'm healthy. I have two. From everything I read, you only need one. You need it. He says, you look like you need it.
It wasn't a big emotional decision for me. And I don't think that my part of this decision is all that big a deal. I honestly think this surgery is fairly commonplace, and then in a few weeks, I'll be fine.
But you're giving up an organ.
Yeah, but I don't need it. I mean, I have two. Look, I'm not the one who has to do the hard work. All I have to do is go to sleep.
But there were hurdles almost from the very beginning. Scott and Bean weren't even the same blood type, which until recently would have made the transplant impossible. But a process pioneered at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center tricked Scott's body into accepting Bean's kidney.
If they have pre-existing antibodies in their bloodstream that might attack the organ, to get rid of those, makes this unrelated donation highly successful.
As the operation got underway, nervous family members gathered in the waiting room. Bean's wife took to playing Monopoly.
I'm definitely sweating it. Anytime anyone's under anesthesia, your heart stops a little bit.
There's the baby.
Bean's healthy kidney came into the world unscathed and was rushed right next door to Scott. His long wait was finally over.
Within the first couple days, you will feel totally different, like a new life.
I haven't figured the right words out that are 3 or 4 levels higher than thank you. What are those words?
I don't need him to to try to put it into words. It's fine, just get better. That's all I want to see from Scott.
And a day after the surgery, Bean got his chance.
Man, thank you so much. It's you really changed my life, really, just overnight.
I'm happy to do it.
I appreciate it.
And there it was, the first real sign that Bean understood what he'd really done. And on this of all days, because it was Bean's birthday.
It's the best birthday I ever had.
I love you so much.
Thank you, man. It's good to see you.
The best gift of all had been the one Bean had given. The kidney bean, as Scott's now calling it.
He looked pretty happy, didn't he?
It changed not one life, but two. For CBS This Morning, I'm Lee Cowan in Los Angeles.
We'll be right back.
CBS Health Watch, sponsored by Airborne, real immune support, including vitamins C, A, E, and zinc.
It's 8 a.m. Welcome back to CBS This Morning. A bus bombing in Tel Aviv threatens peace talks in the Middle East. Can Secretary of State Clinton help repair the damage? And should birth control pills be sold over the counter? One group of doctors says yes, and it's not without controversy. But first, here's a look at today's eye-opener at 8.
At least 10 people have been injured in an explosion on board a bus in Tel Aviv.
The bus exploded on a main street near Israel's military headquarters. They're calling it a terrorist attack.
Israeli forces attacked more targets in Gaza overnight.
Just after 2 a.m., there was this massive blast just outside the hotel that blew in the windows of my room.
Everybody is now extremely concerned about trying to make any predictions whatsoever as to when this ceasefire agreement might happen.
For the fourth year in a row, more Americans will travel this Thanksgiving weekend than they did the year before. 43 million Americans will travel 50 miles or more.
Of a 5'10" shooting guard has just shattered college basketball single-game scoring record. Jack Taylor of Grinnell College in Iowa scored 138 points last night.
It may be the most wonderful time of the year for many, but for Best Buy, this is the most crucial.
It may be strange to hear an edgy morning DJ get serious. Donating a kidney can do that to people.
But you're giving up an organ.
Yeah, look, I'm not the one who has to do the hard work. All I have to do is go to sleep.
Jim, remember what my mother used to say to me, just because you love cars, you don't have to be the fastest and best driver on the road.
Your mother was a smart woman. I'll keep that in mind.
The turkey that will be pardoned by President Obama is staying at the W Hotel in Washington, D.C. Once the turkey got into the minibar, he ended up getting totally basted. And,
The Eye Opener at 8 is brought to you by the AARP.
I'm Charlie Rose with Gayle King. Norah O'Donnell is in Washington. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is in Cairo for another round of ceasefire talks. There has been no let-up in the fighting between Israel and Hamas.
And another wrench has been thrown in the peace efforts this morning. A bomb exploded on a Tel Aviv bus. Alan Pizzi is in Tel Aviv. Alan, what can you tell us?
Well, the bomb went off just down the street behind me shortly before lunchtime. It blew out the front window and all the side windows. 10 people were injured, 3 of them seriously, although it's not life-threatening. The blast took place almost right next to the Israeli Defense Force headquarters here in central Tel Aviv, and fortunately also just around the corner from a hospital, because another 11 people were treated for shock in the street. The last serious bombing in Tel Aviv was over 6 years ago. That killed 11 people. The police say this was not a suicide bomb, but they're calling it most definitely a terrorist attack. They believe the bomb was placed under the seat and think that maybe 1 or 2 men were involved in it. They were hunting for them in the area. There's no word if they've found anybody yet. The bomb is not directly linked to anybody, but Hamas supporters and people in mosques in Gaza broke out in celebration. They were handing out candies at a hospital to celebrate it. It will have an effect on the peace talks because the Israelis will see this as saying, well, you can't deal with these people. Now, interestingly, the problem with the peace talks that are stalled at the moment is that there's a disagreement over the wording. The Israelis, of course, want an end to all bombings, all rocket attacks from Israel. They want some other things. Hamas specifically wants an opening of the borders with Gaza. That's a non-starter as far as the Israelis are concerned. So most of the wording is all about that. bombs are not included in it, but they will very much feature in those talks now. Harry? Sorry. I'm sorry. A bus went by me, and I meant to say Charlie, Nora, and Gail.
Thank you, Alan Pizzi. There is still no ceasefire in spite of days of intense talk. Secretary of State Clinton is right in the middle of that. Senior correspondent John Miller, former Deputy Director of National Intelligence, joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
What would a ceasefire look like? What would be the elements that both sides would want to see included?
Okay, so you're dealing with a trust but verify atmosphere there, where the trust is very low and the ability to verify is pretty difficult. So it's not going to be if you stop shooting, we'll stop shooting. It's got to have a third party built into that. Could that be Qatar? Could that be Turkey? The most likely player there would be Egypt. They've got a relationship with Israel, which is being tested now. They've got a strong relationship with Hamas. So that might mean putting Egyptian monitors in on the idea that those long-range rockets that Hamas got from Iran would be removed, that no further shipments would come in, and that there would be no shooting there. So that would put Egypt in a pretty interesting position.
Now, isn't this a big test, John, for President Morsi, considering the new government there is a Muslim Brotherhood, and he leads a Muslim Brotherhood?
And they created Hamas.
Right.
So when you look at them as the monitor, and that's the trust but verify, who do we really trust here? You know, Israel has a long-standing relationship with Egypt, but not with this government. So that would be a big test for Morsi, the Morsi government, and the Muslim Brotherhood as a broker, as a legitimate broker in the region. And I think there's some hope that could come together, but also at the same time a lot of discomfort with it.
So, John, I'm struck by how much the Egyptian president has been engaged with President Obama. President Obama calling him reportedly 3 times from Air Force One, and obviously Secretary Clinton has landed in Cairo this morning. How critical is Egypt's role, and do you think there'll be a ceasefire by the end of the day?
Well, I try never to make predictions like that because I would have predicted one by the end of yesterday, Nora. Yeah. But Egypt's role is critical. And I say again, it's a big test for Egypt as to whether they can be an honest broker or accepted as an honest broker in the region. But a lot of this boils down to personalities. One of the fascinating things here is about the people. You have Mohammed Shahada, who is now the head of Egyptian intelligence. But he's not a Morsi guy, per se. Morsi promoted him, but he goes back to the Mubarak regime. The Israelis have a relationship with him. They have dealt with him in secret before. He was the broker who got their soldier who was held by Hamas for 6 years out. He has a relationship with Hamas. So when you have a trusted agent as a middleman who all sides have had experience with, that's the kind of thing where you can see this develop into a deal where they say, all right, we're taking your word for it. And then the test begins.
Thank you, John.
And there is a war of words in San Francisco over nakedness. On Tuesday, by a 6-5 vote, the city council barely approved a ban on public nudity. About a half dozen protesters stripped down on the spot, saying their personal freedom was being violated. The new law says anyone who gets naked in public faces a $100 fine, and repeat offenders could get jail time. And if the mayor approves, it would take effect in February.
A new disclosure could shake up the Casey Anthony case. Last year, Anthony, you may recall, was found not guilty of murdering her daughter, Kaylee. Now her lawyer tells our Orlando station, WKMG, that the prosecution failed to bring up key computer evidence. It seems to show that Anthony did a web search on how to kill and poison and suffocate on the same afternoon that her daughter was murdered.
We were waiting for the state to bring it up. And when they didn't, we were kind of shocked. Why they didn't bring it up or how it happened, you'd have to ask them about it. I don't understand how no one ever knew about this evidence. We were keeping it close to the vest and ready to counterpunch in the trial, and it never came out.
The sheriff's office admits it failed to give prosecutors that information. Prosecutor Jeff Ashton says it's a shame they didn't have that computer evidence.
And we first told you last week that Kevin Clash, the puppeteer behind Elmo, was on leave from Sesame Street. That followed charges of a sexual relationship with an underage boy, charges that were quickly withdrawn. Well, now a second accuser has come forward with similar charges, and Clash has now resigned from Sesame Street. Cecil Singleton claims he was 15 when Clash first engaged him in sexual behavior. He is suing Clash for $5 million. Clash says he's deeply sorry to be leaving Sesame Street and is looking forward to resolving these personal matters privately.
People who love coffee are more likely to have that morning cup at home. More American homeowners are buying single-cup coffee machines. One reason they are cost-effective. Brewing 1 cup on a single-serve machine costs anywhere from 55 to 80 cents. A Starbucks tall costs 2 to 3 times as much. 24% of all American homes already have single-serve coffee makers. Sales of those machines are expected to reach nearly $2 billion this year.
And here's a baby panda that some say might have had a little too much caffeine. Twin red pandas. How cute are they? Were born at the zoo in northern Japan last July. Their names are Kin and Jen. One of them was just a little jittery. As a zookeeper approaches, she falls on her back with a look of horror. That's cute, right, Nora? Cute.
Oh, adorable. It's just a little baby, right?
I was
just little
going to
baby
say,
jitters.
You never go wrong with pandas. It is now 8:09. Time now to check your local weather. Should women get birth control pills over the counter without a prescription? A leading group of women's doctors says absolutely. We'll look at the pros and the cons of that controversial recommendation next on CBS This Morning.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by AARP, fighting to keep Medicare and Social Security strong for generations to come.
And this morning, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists is calling for the biggest change in birth control in half a century. The country's leading group of OBGYNs said yesterday that the pill should be sold over the counter with no prescription needed.
Let's talk about that with Dr. Rebecca Brightman. She's an OBGYN at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, based here in New York City. Hello, Dr. Brightman. Good to see you. The biggest change in half a century. Were you surprised by the recommendation?
I was absolutely surprised. I think there's so many things that factor into this. Unfortunately, half of the pregnancies that occur in this country are unplanned and unintended. So,
what's the age rate of that, unplanned and unintended?
It's greatest amongst 18 to 24-year-olds, but really, this is amongst women of reproductive years, and it translates into a really large cost for society, about $11 billion per year.
Why do you think they made the recommendation?
Because clearly they're looking at birth control pills, and while birth control pills have their risks, the risks of pregnancy are great too, and the risks of having issues postpartum exist as well. So I think the recommendation is based on the fact that increasing access to contraception will decrease the number of unintended pregnancies, and in addition to making it widely available over the counter, it will also foster greater compliance.
Doctor, what are the risks to providing birth control pills over the counter?
The risks extend to, potentially women not being able to appropriately select themselves, potentially, checking off a checklist and really overlooking an underlying health problem such as high blood pressure, undiagnosed cancer that's estrogen dependent. And I really feel that patients should see their physician before they make the choice as to what is the most appropriate form of contraception for them.
Is there any age range? Because I was thinking, if this happens, does that mean 14, 15, 16-year-old girls can walk into the pharmacy and get this?
Well, that remains to be said. I mean, this has yet to receive FDA approval, so that has not been standardized yet. There's certain products that are available over the counter, and women need to be 17, for example, to access these products. So we don't even know about parental consent. We don't know anything just yet.
Doctor, what do you think this recommendation means about the future of birth control and making it more readily accessible?
Well, I think ACOG is acknowledging the fact that we really have a problem in terms of unintended pregnancy rate, and I think that pills will be more readily available, but there really remains a question in terms of, will this be covered by insurance companies? Will people be able to afford it once it becomes readily available? And I think it's really a way in which we can acknowledge yet another form of birth control that's accessible.
Bottom line, do you think that this is a good thing? Because many people, I had friends call me saying this is great news, and then others said, wait, not so fast.
I agree, not so fast. I think women should realize this is not a pass. This is not a get out of going to your doctor pass. Women really should see their health care professional at least once a year. They need a breast exam, pap smears. They need to be screened for STDs. And they really need to have the conversation and ongoing dialogue about where they are during this stage of their life to determine what is the most appropriate form of birth control at a particular time.
Thank you, Dr. Rebecca Brightman.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Person to Person was a groundbreaking program in TV's early days, back in the days. And guess what? It's back with Charlie Rose and Lara Logan. The NFL's Drew Brees talks to them about two of his heroes when CBS This Morning continues.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Hershey's Simple Pleasures. 30% less fat, 100% delicious.
Did you see him yesterday? He was testifying before a Senate subcommittee. Did you see this?
I did.
We have exclusive footage. Here's Governor Chris Christie.
And one of the reasons why you have 30 Republican governors in America and why we're the only organization to add Republican strength, House lost members, Senate lost members, we lost the presidency, we went up from 29 to 30 Republican governors, is because people see us getting things done, getting things done for people. And that's what we have to emphasize and talk about. I don't think this is a core philosophical examination we have to go through. What this is about doing our jobs.
I was on Morning Joe. That's where I was. Look, everybody.
Good for Governor Christie. He knows how to make a turkey. Listen to this advice. Perfect holidays only happen on Walton's Mountain. It comes from New York Times columnist Philip Galanis. He's here to help us get through Thanksgiving and beyond. You're watching CBS This Morning. Local news is next.
These songs are true, these days are ours, these tears are free. The cross is in the ballpark.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. Hey, there's Tony Bennett, Wynton Marsalis getting ready to join us at the table. Looking forward to that. This Friday night, CBS is bringing back Person to Person. When that program first aired in the 1950s, well-known people opened their homes to Edward R. Murrow every week.
Lara Logan and I are hosting the new version. One of our guests is New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees and his wife Brittany. And when Drew took the time to show us some of his most meaningful souvenirs, this is what happened.
Probably one of the most unique and one of the most touching for me is this Marine Corps coin from Camp Kinser in Okinawa, Japan. My grandfather, Ray Akins, was in the 1st Marine Division in World War II. He was in on the invasion of Okinawa. I actually got to go and stand on the beach that he stormed in on. And my grandfather's still alive, and I was able to get on a satellite phone and talk to him while I was standing on that beach. And I asked him, you know, Grandpa, what were you thinking? Because, you know, I was just overcome with emotion, just crying, thinking about what that must have been like. And he said, you know, I was 19 years old. I was just trying to live to be 20. Still gets me kind of emotional. But it's that was the greatest generation. Those were strong men and women, and we owe our lives to them every day.
It's clearly an emotional idea for you. I suspect for many of those warriors, you're a hero, but clearly for you, they're the heroes.
There's no question. It is amazing when they tell you, man, I'm such a big fan, you're my idol, or what have you, and I flip that right around on them and say, no, you're the hero.
Let me talk about another hero of yours, Ted Williams. Why Ted Williams?
Well, first of all, I was originally a baseball player. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, and I always admired the fact that he was probably the greatest blend of power and just pure hitting.
Here is Ted's last at-bat.
The more I learned about him was he played 21 years, but he lost out on 4 to 5 years of the prime of his career because of military service. I always had so much respect for I think his mindset in regards to serving his country, being the best baseball player that he could be, and I always respected that.
Drew, your wife says what you see is what you get with you, and you wrote about the birthmark that's on your face and the effect that that had on you growing up, and why you never wanted to have it removed. Tell us what that did to you and how that shaped your character.
I think every person has something that's unique about them, and kids can be cruel. So growing up with a birthmark on your face, that's obviously something that's very different. And so I got plenty of teasing and bullying growing up, with that kind of thing. But I never wanted to have it removed because I felt like it was a part of me. And as I got older, especially, people would look at me and say, I couldn't imagine you without it,
And as it turns out, it didn't happen to be a problem with the ladies.
Brittany didn't mind it so much, I guess.
He's a very interesting guy. He came to New Orleans after Katrina.
Yes,
and bringing the Super Bowl to that town at that time was a remarkable achievement. And New Orleans people love him for what he gives back to the city.
I love him, the fact that he just became emotional talking about the war heroes, and that he can talk so candidly about his birthmark. Most people try to hide that kind of stuff. I can't wait to see it, Charlie.
Thank you.
I like him very much.
You can see the entire interview with Drew Brees and our conversation with Sean Penn and Alicia Keys on Person to Person. That's Friday night at 10, 9 Central, here on CBS.
Holidays are coming. Did you know Thanksgiving's tomorrow? There are bound to be some awkward social moments at your Thanksgiving dinner. Columnist Philip Galanis is described as a modern-day Dear Abby. When we come back, he'll help you survive the holidays. But at 8:34, one more check of your local weather.
Oh, heck. Let me just show you how it's done. Dad, how about a little percussion? Tap, tap, tapping. Tap, tap, tapping. Tap, tap, tapping. Tap, tap, tapping. Mom, hi-hat. Good, Mom. Excellent. And Gary, on the kick drum. Come, come. On the kick drum. Come, come. That's Gary. Come, come with the kick drum. Come. Come, come with the kick drum. Gary, on the kick drum. Come, come. That's Gary on the kick drum. Go. And Gary, in the house. Come, come. Come, come with the kick drum. Come, come.
I'm just not really the kick drum kind of guy. I'd rather be just a listener and enjoy all the...
That awkward moment comes from the breakup, and we don't want that to happen to you with the kick drop on Thanksgiving. So we've got New York Times columnist Philip Galanis to help us get through the holidays. He's the author of Social Cues, How to Survive the Quirks, the Quandaries, and the Quagmires of Today. It's published by Simon & Schuster, which, by the way, is a division of CBS. Hello to you, Philip Galanis. Good to see you.
Good morning, Gail.
Now,
Good to see you.
That was a funny moment, but there are many times at Thanksgiving where it's a very tense situation. You wrote in your column this past Sunday on Thanksgiving, this is a time of year for letting atrocious but harmless behavior roll off our backs whenever possible. What do you mean?
Listen, this is the kickoff for a Super Bowl game that lasts from tomorrow all the way to New Year's Day. We're going to be seeing more family members. We're going to be drinking more booze. We're going to be going into deeper credit card debt, and we're going to be flying more than we do the rest of the year put together. So we've got to pace ourselves and our outrage and our strong resentments and feelings and try to take a breath.
And be calm. So you're saying if you're having a tense time with your family, the holiday dinner table is not the time to try to resolve it.
Now is not the time to do it. Now is never the time where you want somebody at your table to stand up and say, "What did you mean by that?" You want to just take a breath and see if you can get yourself to January. February's an ideal time for resolving a family problem.
But aren't socially awkward moments just inevitable in life, whether it's holiday time or not?
Thank you. It's why I have a job and a book and a column in the Times. You cannot predict. I mean, you can try. In the book, I try chapter by chapter to tell you how to get through your moments on dates and at the office and with family and with your mother, but they are going to crop up every which way.
And I always go back to the Thanksgiving table because you're seeing people that you haven't seen in a long time. And suppose you disagree with the menu that's being served or the time of the dinner or the people that are coming.
Keep your trap
Just be a
shut.
guest.
Be a guest. We're not used to cooking for small armies if we're hosts, so we don't really need the guests to say, oh, I couldn't eat that. I've never liked a chestnut. The poor man or woman's been up for 2 days cooking for you. Just smile and shovel it in.
You know, you've been described as a Dear Abby of our time, and you're okay with that.
I think Dear Abby was a down woman. I like Dear Abby a lot. If I could wig out my hair like that, I would do it.
But what is it about social etiquette, Philip, that so many of us get so wrong?
It's human. I mean, I think it's that we get a little too invested in our own experience. And one of the things that being a lawyer has trained me to do always is to look at the other person's. What's the other person going to say to me when I start negotiating something? And so if we can do that, then we got a bit of a head start in figuring out how to negotiate all the inevitable awkward situations that are going to come our way.
So as we prepare to sit down with our loved ones, just be calm.
Take a breath.
Let it go. Let it go for today. Just let it go.
You got it.
I think that's really good advice. Thank you, Philip DeLon. It's good to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Gail.
Social Cues, by the way, is now out in paperback. Tony Bennett and Wynton Marsalis, how about that duo? Here in Studio 57, and Charlie Rose.
Boy, I've never seen so much talent in one couch in my life.
I'll say, look
these two.
Yeah, it's a trifecta, I'm thinking.
I bring the talent down, but nevertheless, when you're sitting with these guys, you feel the music.
You really do. We're going to talk about the music, the life, and other things that we're thankful for on this Thanksgiving Eve. That's coming up next on CBS This Morning.
Selling 'cause I'm trimming my sails with my top hat and my white tie and my tails. Stepping out with my baby, can't go wrong 'cause I'm in right.
That is the one and only Wynton Marsalis saluting Tony Bennett, the one and only Tony Bennett at the 2005 Kennedy Center Honors. The legendary singer's just published a memoir. It's called Life is a Gift, The Zen of Bennett.
Tony Bennett is here along with CBS News cultural correspondent Wynton Marsalis. We're pleased to have them. What a great title, Tony. Yes. Life is a Gift.
Well, thank you.
The Zen of Bennett. I want to start this by talking to first Wynton. Tell me about him.
Well, he's the essence of our American tradition. I mean, he's a civil rights man. He has stood for the highest quality in music for so long, and he's also a tremendous giver. He does so many things for so many people.
But in the end,
thank you.
Beyond all that stuff, it's the voice.
The voice, the musicianship, you name it.
Well, I love it. I love doing it. And I love being an entertainer. I like to make people feel good.
You do.
And it feels, I'm very contented after the people leave the theater, you know, they feel great about the show they saw. And it makes me feel very good.
When you sing a song, what are you thinking?
I just want to believe what I'm singing at the time.
If you can feel it inside and believe it, then you can tell us through your voice.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
Connect it to our thoughts.
Right, exactly.
You write in your book, The Zen of Bennett, that one of your favorite songs is "The World is Full of Beautiful Things," and that really does seem, after reading the book, the way you see life, Tony.
Well, it is. You know, as a student of painting, you study nature, and the more you study nature, you can't believe what a gift it is. That's why I call it life is a gift. You study nature, and it's so beautiful, and it's the boss. It's actually bigger than all of us.
You're not just a student of painting; you're a painter.
Yeah.
And you're 86.
Right.
And still going strong.
Really, I love it.
Learning new things every day. Studying every day.
That's what I'm searching for. To keep learning, trying to get better. As I go along.
This is you picked up exactly on what I was thinking, Charlie, because you said at 86 you still have so much to learn and you still are looking to grow. What is it that you are still trying to do that you have not done?
I just want to get better.
At singing?
At any of the things that I'm doing, I'd like to just keep growing and learning more and more.
You write in the book that you say there's no such thing as a bad audience, it's a bad performance.
Right.
You think that's true?
It is true.
You blame yourself if the show doesn't go well?
Absolutely.
Me too.
You know, if you walk out with an energy, the audience has the energy. If you walk out where you don't care whether they like you or not, then they don't care whether they like you or not immediately. I mean, it's just that simple.
You know, you also made an interesting comment in the book about when musicians in their early days, they could do a whole album in 2 days. But now they spend 3 weeks on a song.
Well, that would take a lot of time to prepare for it. But when you went in, you would do it in 3.5 hours. You know, you do 4 songs in 3.5 hours.
Well, do you see a difference in the performance practice? Like when you know you have to do something live, you have to get to it. When you have 3 weeks, maybe you could be.
Yeah.
What do you think? To make you too relaxed or more relaxed? What was your feeling about?
Well, you have to be prepared. I mean, you have to. It takes a lot of homework, you know, before you go into performing with the entertainers, you know, the musicians. You have to walk in knowing what you're going to do.
Yeah, this is like watching Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams talk about hitting.
It is, it is.
Thank you.
No, I think that's a really good analogy. I love how you said there's a story in the book where you did a song in 15 minutes and somebody said, that was great, you did it so quickly, and your son Danny said, yeah, 15 minutes and 50 years worth of work. Bravo to you. As we get ready for Thanksgiving, though, we asked Wynton Marsalis to look at where we are as a country right now and what we should be grateful for on this holiday.
Turkey may be the ceremonial centerpiece, but let's not forget about stuffing, cranberry sauce, and all the comfort and dysfunction that family and extended family bring to the table. Thanksgiving. The mythic meal shared by Native Americans with starving pilgrims became a symbol of giving to others in need, of accepting kindness with gratitude, and of recognizing the temperamental authority of Mother Nature through prayer. Well, it was in response to the bloodiest year of the Civil War that President Lincoln decreed the final Thursday in November to be the holiday we now observe. Down through the years, this annual celebration of thanking and giving, praying and cooking has become a sacred tradition. The harder the times, the greater the giving, the deeper the thanks. Today, we're slowly coming together after a contentious election season. Our candidates expended enormous resources in a divisive debate over the national agenda which strained the very fabric of friendships, families, and communities. In the Northeast, victims of Superstorm Sandy, some still without homes, face enormous obstacles, be it earthquakes in the West, tornadoes in the Midwest, or hurricanes in the South. Mother Nature will have her way. But we are a generous and resourceful nation. We always grow to the size of the challenge. As we invite fellow citizens to a welcome table in this time of need, let us give thanks for what we have and for what we have in each other. November means Thanksgiving. Every November, this tradition lifts us to a year-end holiday season of grand giving and gratitude. But let's not overlook the personal traditions of every day that make our world a much sweeter place. We must have our Sunday service. What about Mama Lucy's beauty parlor every other Wednesday, or a few colorful words with old Captain Bob at the newsstand? Let us give thanks for the personal touchstones that shape and enrich our lives. And there's always much to be thankful for. Though the blues is always on the menu, human kindness is everywhere around us. It is in the night and day work of those who restored power after Sandy. It is in the selfless outpouring of financial and medical aid, and it is no less powerfully present in countless thoughts, hopes, and well wishes. Let us pray for those in need, and let us also give thanks to our everyday heroes. Grandparents who pick up the slack for struggling parents, artists who perform in hospitals, prisons, and homes for the elderly, students who mentor, and parents who coach, volunteers from all across the nation whose outpouring of concern, caring, and compassion create a symphony of giving in the spirit of that mythic first Thanksgiving feast. This is a time to recognize and give thanks and pray. Of all the things we will encounter, glorious landscapes, thrilling adventures, or things we may possess, cars, homes. Nothing will be greater or more impactful than another person. It's Thanksgiving. Let's pardon more than the holiday turkey. Let us give. Let us forgive. Let us give thanks.
Hey, Tony, not bad for a horn player, huh?
That's pretty good, boy. I'll tell you, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
That was very powerful.
That's working with the team here. Yeah. Everybody is. It's just,
Paige gave you a little help there.
Paige, yeah, great, phenomenal always.
Thanksgiving is one of the really great holidays, and it's something we can all come and appreciate because something good has always happened to us and something to look forward to.
But I love the line that you said, Wynton, the harder the giving, the deeper the thanks.
Right. The harder, the more terrible stuff that happens to you. Louis Armstrong always had a saying. He would describe the most horrific thing, and at the end of it, he would say, "That's life." Yeah. As if it's what's in Tony's singing and playing is the acceptance of the bad things. Like he's saying, yeah, life is great, but underneath that is all of these things that happen, and we're gonna make it great. We're gonna make it greater.
Tony, you love Louis Armstrong.
He taught everybody how to play. He invented swing, bebop, rap, and whatever's going to come up next, you find out he did it.
Yeah.
No, and when they came to you, Tony, to change your style of singing, you went to him, or Count Basie, and he said, "Why change an apple?"
Yeah, right.
I'm good just the way I am. Yeah, it was Basie who said that.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't fix it. That's exactly right.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend. Tony, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Life is a Gift is on sale now, and I also want to say to Our Lady in Washington, yes. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Have a great one for us.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Charlie and Gail.
I know.
Your local news. We'll see you tomorrow on CBS This Morning. Have a great Thanksgiving, Gail.